opposite the Gateway Mall here in Nairobi to bring you up to speed what exactly is happening here in terms of business. Well, KTN Business today has been out and about. We are at Syokimau, opposite the Gateway Mall, really to be able to look at local businesses and what exactly has been happening here in terms of sand harvesting, value addition to that, looking at the busy Mombasa and Nairobi highway, all the vehicles passing the Mlolongo Way Bridge, which is just behind me here, and of course, how exactly all these come together to make business for you possible. Later on this show, we will be talking to one of the locals, getting an idea of what exactly happens here, what of course they do in terms of sand harvesting, making bricks, culverts, that sort of thing, what small businesses here are doing and how they are faring in this tough economy. Later on in the show, we have an expert on business, a business strategist and a trainer. He is from a company that specializes in enabling SMEs to grow themselves and enabling individuals who want to get into business, well, of course, know what to do about just that. Again, later on in the second part of the show, the Sunni Punjabi Business Association, they, of course, have a trade fair that is coming up in a few days. What exactly the perspective from that group, that, of course, will be later on in the show. To bring you to speed on who my guest exactly is today here, he is Mr. Jeff, who is from a company that specializes on, training you in your business, value addition, business strategy, that sort of thing. Say hi to the viewers.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, so of course we will be engaging him a bit later on what exactly you can expect in terms of if this was your business, how would you fare in these tough economic times? In terms of politics, how do you go about strategizing so that your business continues to do well even in the face of the turbulence that has been experienced in the economy? That, of course, is later on. First, to the business stories of the day. But before we go there, to remind you of our Twitter poll question today, and we are asking, do you think that the money spent on electronic gadgets, software, election security at the IBC was well spent? Again, do you think that the money spent on electronic gadgets, software, election security at the IBC was well spent? Reach out to us. The hashtag is business today. You can, of course, use the Twitter handle at Peter Wakaba or the Twitter handle at KTN News, and we'll continue to sample that as the show does go on. Of course, that is also the same question that we will be putting to our analyst here later on in terms of business and politics and what exactly the perspective has been. But I want him to hold his thoughts because we want to look at a few business stories so that we can, of course, continue to bring you up to speed on what exactly is happening here in terms of the business stories of the day. To the first story of the day, and this time, unconfirmed reports indicate that the national carrier Kenya Airways may have finally been cleared to undertake direct flights to the United States. This essentially means that the national carrier has finally cleared the last hurdle in its quest to operate direct flights to the U.S. This is after the U.S. Department of Transport issued Kenya Airways with a foreign air carrier permit, enabling that airline operate those flights. With the permit, Kenya Airways will be able to handle both passenger and cargo transport to and from America. It is seen as a major milestone for the national carrier, which has been pushing for direct flights as part of its strategy to diversify its markets. Kenya Airways had applied for the permit earlier in the year after the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport was awarded a Category 1 status by the U.S. government. The national carrier is yet to confirm or deny this report. Now to a story that we've been following for a while now. The Kenya International Freight and Warehouse Association, KIFWA, has embarked on its first steps to revive its activities and streamline the clearing and forwarding business sector, following a falling out with Kenya revenue authorities recently that saw its members, activities grind to a halt due to a lack of licenses. Of course, KRA denied them those licenses. In a move aimed to mend their frosty relationship with KRA, the association is set to withdraw all cases that are going on in court start in out-of-court dialogue as they partner and reduce the number of litigations against the taxman. Instead, KIFWA will work towards encouraging more of its members to undergo due diligence in order to be able to be eligible to renew their licenses. KIFWA is proposing minimum training arrangements and standards for all directors and company owners as a precondition for renewal of licenses in training to be rolled out in May of 2018. Well, to some publishing news here now, and Longhorn Publishers has posted a 29% increase in its profit after tax in its full year results. The increase was as a result of a 9% drop in production and operating expenses. Longhorn's net profit increased to some 133.87 million shillings in the period, compared to some 104 million shillings recorded over a similar period last year. Well, the firm's sales from Uganda, Tanzania, Malawi, Rwanda, and Senegal contributed to about 30% of the turnover from the 20% that had been recorded the previous year. Going forward, Longhorn plans to further set its footprint in Arabic-speaking countries in Africa, as well as continue to invest in growing its digital platforms and thereby stamp its authority in Africa in terms of printing.
Three years ago, we were not in about 5 new markets that we've gone now. The board decided to get into the Francophone arena. We've always been on the Anglophone countries. And that has started with Senegal, where we have already submitted our books and made sales. I think the first Kenyan publishing company to make sales in an Anglophone country. So that has enabled this company to move from 5% of sales being made in the region 2 years ago. Then it became 20% last year. And the year that we are announcing here, 30% of the revenues that we have shown here has not come from Kenya. In our next year, we expect 50% of our sales to come from outside of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll agree with that strategy, so that, which makes sense, because Kenyan market could change dramatically, government policy could change, but we want to make sure that other markets take care of that.
Well, as indicated earlier, we're still here staging at Syokimau, opposite the railway station and near Gateway Mall. And the perspective, of course, here is that we are here today to gauge what exactly business has been in this area in terms of first, sand harvesting. Secondly, the fact that a lot of small businesses here, of course, have the opportunity to be, well, go out there and become bigger businesses. Joining me on set, as indicated earlier, is well, a gentleman who is an expert in terms of business development. Of course, he is going to introduce himself and start talking to us about business. Welcome, sir.
Right, thank you.
Yes, now, first off, please tell us your name and the company you work for.
My name is Jeff Njao Moya, and I'm the CEO of Market Analytics and Research.
Yes.
We're a business development think tank, and what we do is work on 3 things. That's business training, business research,
yes,
and business strategy.
So, looking around me here today, where we are at Syokimau, one would consider these informal businesses, places that you wouldn't think a lot of money is made. Please hold up your microphone. And the fact of the matter is that there are millions and millions of shillings that are transacted through places like this every day in Kenya.
True.
So how do we go about bringing these businesses into the mainstream economy first?
First, Syokimau is a major space with respect to business. As you can very well see, there's a lot of construction and construction supplies, sand, cement, and behind us, you can be able to see the railway terminus, which is one of the major items of infrastructure that have brought in business in this space, and a lot of real estate.
Yes.
Obviously, the election has been able to give a push down to business in this space, and most of the city and a few other spaces in the rest of the country. But as you can see, the business people are resilient, and they are fighting on, and they are coming in, they are opening. You can see the trucks moving the sand in and out. So yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things is that currently I think construction contributes about 7% in total to GDP, which is a very large amount. But government still considers a lot of these businesses informal. Yet they're such a large player. Where is the disconnect? Is it that we don't have policy in place to be able to recognize some of this? Or is it simply a matter of the players, the stakeholders, not really going out and trying to start to become formal?
The construction space is a very diverse space. First, the market of construction is different from different perspectives. The first is the market that comes from public sector.
Yes.
The construction that accrues from government, the construction that accrues from public sector institutions.
Yes.
Then the next is the developers,
yes.
Who develop commercial real estate and even individual real estate. Then the next bit is the small construction that is largely informal. Part of the construction space is real estate space is formal, but the bigger chunk of it is informal, especially that accrues
yes.
from supplies and the issuance of what it takes to do real estate.
Yes.
So the government has partially tried to bring in sanity and bring in formality to the construction space, especially with National Construction Authority, trying to regularize labor for construction.
Yes.
Organizations are coming together and players are coming together, setting up institutions and circles that can be able to formalize them so that they can be able to bid for bigger businesses. So it is informal, but making strides to get into formality, bit by bit, by bit.
Yeah, let's talk about the current situation where we are in the midst of some very tough and turbulent political times.
True.
A lot of businesses showing resilience.
Yes.
A lot of others going through a very tough period, saying business is down.
Yeah.
And indeed praying for the day that this situation resolves itself.
Every business.
What is your analysis of the way these things stand? Is the economy doing well? Is it suffering from the politics?
The truth is, the economy is suffering from politics heavily at this particular time. One, the first thing that I'll talk about is the public sector. The public sector currently is hardly spending. They are spending on emergency or just keep it alive kind of spending.
Yes.
The public sector is one of the biggest sources of money that circulates in the economy. The people who are affected the most from public sector not spending is the corporate sector. Because one, the corporate sector is the one that services a lot of the public sector work. Because the corporate sector, on the other hand, is not spending as much as it should, then the next guy is the SME. The SME services the corporate sector. So right now, you'll find very many SMEs are not doing as much business because the guys who they work with, the guys who they service, which is the corporate sector, are not doing well. And by extension, the public sector has sort of frozen or slowed down expenditure.
Yes, so this is, so to say, a sort of a systemic challenge for the entire economy.
Yes, it is a systemic challenge for the entire economy.
There are, however, instances where you would say that they are reaping big in this economy. There are some who say that this is the time, indeed, when the coffee is ripe, as the Kikuyus say.
Yes.
Who do you think those are? Can you point out any?
There are some people who are reaping big. One, the guys who celebrated immediately this electoral process was pushed even further. First was the events industry. Guys who are doing sound, guys who are doing the big events, logistics for politics, transport sector, specifically servicing the political space. Number two is retail. The retail players, right now, there's a lot of what is called panic buying. Supermarkets have longer and longer queues because, guys, the market feels as if the products will be out of the market. So they want to buy and fill up their shelves more and more. Another sector that is really doing well at this particular time is the security sector because of the perception of insecurity. Whether that's true or not true is for the viewers to judge. So the security sector is also really, really doing well at this particular time.
There are those then who say that economies such as this are meant for, of course, people who are taking a long-term view towards investment. People who invest in brick and mortar because this sort of stuff is not going anywhere for the next few days. Indeed, looking over my shoulder, I can see some of the trains continuing to pull in the SGR and that sort of thing as it passes by, and really knitting together the economy. So what are the things we need to do to build this resilience in your estimate?
The first thing, and I have to applaud entrepreneurs, you have to keep doing business. You have to open. You have to keep at it.
Yes.
One of the things that I would challenge entrepreneurs is to rethink their market segments.
Yes.
If you are supplying government, for example, you need to start thinking about other sections of the market that you might want to supply. Increase your market segmentation.
Yes.
If you're working with more of the corporates that are heavily public-oriented,
yes.
Where they service a lot of the public sector, you need to think through modalities of diversification.
Yes.
Another key thing, which is a very good thing that has happened at this particular time, is devolution.
Yes.
Because there might be crisis or a perception of the same in the big cities,
yes.
but in the counties, things are calm. So people who are doing business might want to consider going out. Let us not be Nairobi, Mombasa centric.
Yes.
Let us go out to Mashinani and do business there, because there are also people who can be able to consume your products. There are also people who can be able to consume your services.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of what you're saying, devolution, do you think
Yes.
that has been a real enabler for this economy, or is it going to slow down our economy, especially seeing as we have things like the SGR, which essentially means that you can move goods and services in that much more efficient fashion?
I have always been a big supporter of devolution.
Yes.
Why? A small, obscure place
yes.
in the farthest corner of this country has a couple of billions round in that economy.
Yes.
That means money and business has been devolved to the deepest of the places in the country.
Yes.
So yes, it is a major enabler of business.
Yes.
It is actually one of the things that will enable the country to bounce back from this slowdown.
Yes.
Because there's a bit more going on. Yes, public sector is not doing as much,
yes.
but in other spaces, it's almost 60, 70, close to 80% business going on in those
My final
counties.
question for you.
Yes.
The fact that after tough times, be it political
yes.
or otherwise, businesses downsize.
Yes.
We have people who are let go and that sort of thing.
True.
You are an expert in retraining these people to be able to go out there and become entrepreneurs,
yes.
gain livelihoods for themselves without
yes.
having to be employed,
yeah.
gainfully employ themselves.
Yeah.
What do you think people should be looking at right now?
What people should be looking at right now is a bit of shifting focus.
Yes.
If you've been grossly affected by this political dispensation,
yes.
among the things that you need to relook at is your market base.
Yes.
Sometimes you might even rethink product base, whereby if the products that you're currently serving are very specific to this particular that are affected by this particular time, yes. you might want to shift the products that you're offering so that you have some that that can be taken up regardless of what political dispensation it is. Let me give you an example. The food industry is almost a constant. People
yes.
have to eat regardless of the times.
Yes.
So one might want to think through, what product base do you have? Can you be able to diversify your product base a bit more so that you can be able to, regardless of the times, be able to move? Another thing that I would advise is expansion in other spaces, expansion in the counties. There's a East African community, expansion in other countries, so that we are not just affected by the whims of one market.
Yes.
We can be able to broaden our space. And Kenya has a capital, we can be able to compete favorably or even better than most African countries. So my advice to market is look beyond, look wider, and reach out.
What about those who will get retrenched or downsized?
There has been, even before the election, there was a big wave of retrenchment, especially with the financial sector. Most banks have reduced their staff
yes.
significantly. If you've already been retrenched or you're in the process, you've been ousted from a job, that's not the end of life.
Yes.
You have to pick yourself up and you have to rethink. And one of the things that I advise any of these particular people is look at the times that we are currently in.
Yes.
Look at the things that you love to do
yes.
that still can be able to be taken up at this particular moment in time, and start pursuing business. But be alive to the realities that exist and circumvent them by either going to other markets or by reaching out through other mechanisms.
Okay, indeed, sir. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us, bringing insights into what exactly people should be doing in these tough political times, and indeed to start to formalize and bring such businesses such as this where we are into the formal market.
Yes.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that conversation, of course, there has been all about first formalizing business, bringing businesses that are considered informal into the formal sector. And of course, during tough political times, you can start to expect that people will start to be downsized, let go, that sort of thing. What do you do next? Of course, some of that advice being given in that interview right there. You can, of course, see it once again on YouTube. Of course, that is on at KTN News. Well, go to our live stream to be able to see what exactly is happening. Well, we want to close that segment right there, but now we want to go on a short commercial break. When we come back, we have yet a second interview that is going to bring you up to speed on, well, what exactly the Sunni Punjab community has been doing here in Kenya and the trade fair that they have put together to enable traders, businesses, consumers be able to come together in this tough political times. Do stay with us on KTN Business Today. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.